everyone. Hope you've had a good day if you've been here. Really excited to be with some powerhouse women tonight, and we're going to talk all about drinks, beverage, what it takes to scale. It's a pretty tough game out there, especially in the world we're in. So I think there's some nuance to our category, which is really exciting as well. So I think the format will be, I'm just going to run through some questions, which will be covering everything from funding to operations, marketing, brand, distribution. And then we'll have some time at the end for some Q&A. So if you've got questions throughout, hold on to them and we will cover them later on. So, my ladies, thought we could just start with a bit of a quick intro. So, name, brand, sort of founding story, and then maybe what your role is in the business. Should we start with you, Raissa?
Hello, my name is Raissa. I started DoubleDutch about 10 years ago together with my twin sister. We are Dutch twins, hence the name DoubleDutch. Started from the UK out of a university project. So we do a range of premium tonic waters and mixers. We sell mostly to hospitality, so bars, restaurants, hotels in the UK. And then we export to about 45 other countries.
Incredible. Hi guys, I'm Kelly. I'm sorry to disappoint, I'm not Raissa. We do get confused sometimes. But my background, I can assure you, is working with founder-led businesses in the food and drink space. And I've been at PerfectTed for the last 2 years. I joined, at the time, felt like a startup I'd taken a bet on. It was 2024. The team was 2 fantastic graduates. And now we are the UK's fastest growing founder-led business and retail brand. And I have a fantastic team of 20. So it's been an incredible journey. But we are here to make matcha accessible. So hopefully some of you guys have tried us.
Amazing. Hi everyone, I'm Hannah. So I head up D2C at Trip. That involves basically everything e-commerce. So if you have any questions about anything e-commerce, it's a global role. It's been pretty exciting. Been there for about 4 years now, and similar to these guys, have seen like crazy growth and experienced lots of different things. So can hopefully answer any questions around marketing and e-commerce for you.
Amazing. So we're going to dive into the first part, which is getting through the early capital crunch. And Raissa, I'm going to come for you here. So can you just walk us through maybe your funding journey early on, and at what point did you really think, okay, we need to go out and raise now because we're capital constrained, and to really make moves we need to raise?
We kind of needed money quite early on because I think with drinks you kind of need to fund your production, you need to fund kind of 3-4 months ahead, and then you get paid 2 months after, so there's always kind of a 6-month kind of gap between that. We kind of, I think after month 2, we decided to raise investment. Sorry, what was the question?
Just your funding journey to date, and at what point did you feel like you really needed to raise the capital because you felt constrained if you didn't?
So we kind of raised approximately £15 million across the years. Very much in the beginning, we knew that we wanted, we started without a background in drinks, so we knew that we wanted investors that had some kind of strategic background within drinks and ideally in hospitality and kind of our channel that we were selling to. So we approached people on LinkedIn and asked if they were interested in investing, and then that's how we got our first £250,000. And then from there on, kind of around afterwards, we would just kind of tell everyone that we were raising investments. I think kind of the second round was very much customers, so owners of bars, restaurants, spirit distributors, kind of people within hospitality. And then our biggest minority shareholder is the family Heineken, who came on board in 2020 and have been super supportive. And I think we've kind of looked at investment always kind of from a point of view. I'd rather have a smaller part of a very big company than a bigger part of a very small company. And I think within drinks, especially in the beginning, there is definitely that funding gap of you need to start that production, you need to kind of start selling, you need to kind of, if there is either you need to have some savings to kind of have that first bit, or I think from the beginning you kind of need a bit of capital to start with.
Yeah. I think certainly with the minimum order quantities in beverage, it can be quite crippling if you don't have that. And Kelly, from a marketing lens as well, you joined PerfectTed in a very high growth period, and then you scaled the team from 4 to 20. Is that right?
Yeah. It's been incredible seeing the team grow.
Yeah. So can you sort of talk us through maybe some of the early days when you were just 4 people on tight budgets and how these constraints made you more creative? And then I know PerfectTed's gone on to raise with Felix Capital, and how has that changed perhaps the dynamics within the business?
I think that the truth is we may have a big team now, but what I say to the founders is I need a big team because we're going to do a lot with very little spend. And I've always preferred to invest more in resource than activity because I'm a believer that it goes further and you can do more. And we have operated on a small budget since when I joined until now and had an outsized impact. And we talk a lot about 2 mantras we have as a team is out-create, don't outspend, and earned first thinking. And earned first thinking is something I'm really passionate about. And it's really about how do you do something that is interesting enough, funny enough, entertaining enough, that it gets people talking about your brand organically, and then you amplify it. So as an example, I think this was about 6 months ago now, we knew that Sabrina Carpenter was in town doing a concert, and she is like idol status for our demographic, which is young Gen Z women. And we thought, okay, how do we get into the TikTok algorithm around the Sabrina Carpenter moment? Because it's going to give us a lot of reach, but we don't really want to pay for a partnership. So we had planned for our social media manager to go into a Waitrose dressed up as Sabrina Carpenter, impersonate her, and then film like a behind the scenes video. Unfortunately, on the day of our social media manager, who's fantastic, came up to me and said, I'm really sorry, I don't feel comfortable doing this. And I thought, well, it's kind of fair enough, but I think it's a good idea, so I'll do it. And I thought if I do it and it works, everyone's going to have to do what I say for the next 2 years. So I did it, and we had her film a video which looked like Sabrina going in with a security guard, which was actually our operations manager, picking a matcha off the shelf, and it was edited in a way like, oh my God, just seen Sabrina in Waitrose. It went viral, and then we, 24 hours later, said, okay, got you, that was us. And we got over 5 million views, paid nothing. I mean, we paid for the wig, and that was our most successful piece of content last year, and that is the mentality that we still have today.
Did Sabrina ever reach out?
Thankfully, no, because I think that probably would have been a lawsuit. And then you mentioned Felix as well. Honestly, it's not. We were really lucky to partner with Felix Capital and get investment from them. It's not changed us at all. I think it's really, they want to enable us to do more in our own way and not change our culture. We also have had investment from Stephen Bartlett via Dragon's Den, which was a really important experience for the brand, and that's had a big influence on us as well.
Yeah, no, that's great to hear. And just a follow-up question to that. So how do you make the case internally to spend on marketing? Because it's one of those things which is quite hard to measure, the same for PR. So how do you justify the spend and then the return on that spend internally?
I think this is a big challenge, and I'm graced with fantastic founders that really understand the value of brand building and not just performance marketing. So that obviously helps. I think understanding the problem is really key. So we worked out at the end of last year that actually more people than you think are aware of matcha. About 70% of the UK population are, but most people don't know our brand and they're interested, but they've never tried a matcha. But when they do, they love it. So the key problems were awareness and trial. So that helps me frame a conversation around where we should invest. And awareness, in order to really drive awareness for a young Gen Z audience, it's about virality and entertainment, and that's where you've got to do crazy shit. And I have a line in my budget, which is £25,000 a year, crazy shit, the finance department can't touch it, and it just enables the team to do things that they can't explain, and it works.
I love that. Such a genius folder. I think we should create one of those. So switching gear now, looking at direct-to-consumer a little bit more and selling drinks online, which is notoriously quite difficult because they're heavy and cost a lot, sometimes more to ship than they are to make. So when you, within Trip, are selling beverage online, because it's so hard and you've got to account for the logistics and all of that, how do you guys think about D2C within Trip? Is it more kind of marketing? Is it actually a big portion of your sales? What's your sort of approach?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's kind of the opposite slightly of PerfectTed. So what we've done with Trip, and clearly both are working well, is that we've used our D2C and our TikTok shop as that performance channel. It is still profitable, and we've got to profitability over the years through scale and retention and building up our subscriber base. But what we've done is that all of that marketing that we've got from Meta and from TikTok has had an amazing halo impact on our retail and our Amazon as well, and those kind of more bottom of funnel channels which are scooping up that demand. So whilst D2C, we have got to profitability over the years, and it's hard because, as you say, those drinks are heavy, and especially going into the US now and seeing fulfillment costs in the US, which are just crazy. Don't touch it. You will get there in the end, and with those economies of scale, they will come down. But the real magic comes from the impact on your other channels of people seeing those ads. They might not feel comfortable buying on D2C, but they will then go into store and say, actually, I've seen these ads. It looks pretty cool and amazing. Let's try one with my meal deal. And then from there, they might come back and be like, I really like this. I'm going to subscribe on D2C. And it's finding the role of each of those channels in your overall mix and making them all work together.
And what sort of percentage of the business is D2C for you? Because I remember speaking in the early days to the fans of Dash, and I was so wowed with how large it was for them. I think at the time it was about 70%, which I didn't realise because I think they're so big in retail. So how sort of big is it? You know, you don't have to give specific numbers, but percentage-wise of the business. And
yeah, for e-com in general, and when I'm talking about e-com, that's Amazon, D2C, TikTok shop, we're about 50 to 60% of the overall business in terms of revenue, and that's including the US as well. That has changed, and it changes also seasonally. So in summer, we see that drinks sell really, really well in retail because people are out and about, they want to grab it in retail, and it's the opposite on D2C. And then we see New Year, New Me, when people are looking to stock up, is a really great time for us on e-commerce. But then within e-commerce, D2C makes up a good proportion of that too, and historically it was bigger, but like I said, we're finding the role of each of those channels now within our marketing mix and how it works for the consumer. And D2C right now is where you subscribe and you buy in bulk and you have that easy for you subscription coming in. So that roughly makes up around 25 to 30% of our company revenue.
yeah, it's amazing. And sort of just staying on that theme then with all of you. So when you look to acquire a new customer on D2C, is there a strong focus on sort of retention and repeat rate, or is it very much sort of just awareness building?
Do you want to go first?
I do, so.
I think, do you know, something we probably do share is TikTok Shop is one of our biggest brand awareness channels. And we really do focus on it, not as an e-com channel, but on a brand channel. And I fought quite hard to keep it in marketing and not e-com because I do think it's the most relevant channel for our target audience. And in terms of customer acquisition, we've made a lot of progress recently, but not on the subscription side. So if you visit our website today, what you'll see are these beautifully designed matcha starter kit. So a bowl that you can use to make your matcha, a whisk, a little holder for your whisk, and a scoop that you can use to take your matcha out. So it's what you need to make your first matcha, because that's a really big hurdle for people. And that is flying in terms of new customer acquisition. But we are early on our D2C journey. We've only just hired an e-commerce manager, and we haven't quite cracked how do we now convert that into subscription. So I'm interested in your perspectives as well, truthfully.
Nice. I can give a little bit of an overview. So the biggest thing we did, and over the last, I've been working at Trip for 4 years, those customer acquisition costs have been going up and up and up and up, especially when you're young, you're reaching all of these new audiences and it's exciting. But over the years, we've gone into more and more retail, so it's much easier to buy us in store, and then also your media costs are going up, and there's all of these other things that are happening. So the biggest thing we did was a couple of years ago, we launched our subscription. And straight away, our customer lifetime value almost doubled. It was really great for us, and it was a really great lever. Actually took us quite a while because we were a CBD drink, and there are so many legislations and policy issues around CBD. So we were a little bit late to it, but once we got there and we did it, really changed the game for us. Of course, it then comes back down to what you use the channel for. Not everyone's going to want to subscribe, and it then becomes less of a trial channel, where you'll probably get TikTok Shop as the trial channel, or you might get retail as the trial channel, and then D2C becomes kind of like the longer term channel where people go for when they really like the brand and they know the brand. And then in terms of nurturing that customer, we really work on our customer email flows. So there are some really great supplement brands out there at the moment that I'd encourage everyone to have a look at their onboarding customer flow, and they really talk about the benefits of the product and the gains that you'll get from building up a habit with the product, and they really nurture the customer going through. One thing that we've been like thinking about over the years and been testing is that how often do you want to contact a customer, because if they're already a subscriber, do you want to trigger them to think, actually, I'll unsubscribe when they see your email? So it's like it's testing the two and seeing what works for you. But overall, we found that really giving the customer that education, telling them more about the product, showing them all about which other celebrities are drinking us, how many other people love us. It builds up that trust and that relationship, and that's what's worked quite well for us when it comes to retention.
Which of the supplement brands should we all be subscribing to get their flows now?
Yeah, I mean, IM8 do some pretty good emails. Groons, I guess that's America only at the moment, but AG1 have put a lot of time into their onboarding flows, so I would have a look at all of those. There are resources online as well to see all of these things.
Great. Love a bit of inspiration. And Raissa, what about you for D2C? What sort of portion of the business is it? Do you guys focus? Because I know you're heavy on trade, and that's definitely where I first discovered DoubleDutch. So do you sort of consider D2C as a big play for you?
Less than 0.1%. So
wow.
I can't really. For us, because the majority of our business is glass, we have cans, but for us it's very much that, like you say, the delivery is more expensive than the cost. People buying mixers in like a full case would be around a party. Otherwise, most people in London, for example, wouldn't have the space to stock up. Like one case is 24 bottles. So we haven't really we've always said or up to now, unless e-com does do well, Amazon does do well for us. But direct e-com, I'd be interested to chat to you how long it takes to make it profitable.
And it's quite an interesting interplay though with Amazon and D2C, because there's different sort of pros and cons of going down Amazon, which is, you need to play on Amazon really in this day and age, but then also you're taking away from your direct consumer business, which may be more margin lucrative. So how do you guys value D2C versus Amazon within your sort of mix?
I think for us, we've learned a lot in doing that, and I'm sure we share this, but it's about having a clear channel strategy in which we're using each e-commerce channel for. So Amazon, very price-driven, very bulk-driven, and it is good for acquisitions. It's incredibly convenient, but you're not going to do a lot for brand there. So loyalty is really hard. So we focus on like bigger, bulky orders, even wholesale customers. And then TikTok Shop is very much acquisition awareness with D2C, where we're really trying to push loyalty, even though we've not quite cracked it yet. And an important piece for us was products and getting that different on each channel, because we also have a retail business, and all of those retailers have e-commerce businesses. So when you run a Google search for matcha, you're not just getting PerfectTed from our website and our Amazon, you're also getting it from Ocado and Holland & Barrett and Tesco. So we had to have different products for each channel. So we've just launched, for example, an iced matcha gift set on TikTok, exclusive merchandise on TikTok, all that kind of accessorizing really works. Whereas the offering is a little bit more standard on Amazon. I don't know if you do the same thing.
So interesting. We have exactly the same problem. Because we sell on so many different platforms. Our biggest competitor essentially is ourselves on D2C. We actually have a slightly different problem in the fact that our margins are surprisingly better on Amazon because we're not paying for that upfront customer cost. instead, we're kind of scooping up all of the demand from all of our other channels on Amazon because it's where people want to buy. It's easier. They're already buying there. They get free next day delivery if they're a Prime customer. So we see Amazon as really that bottom of funnel channel where it's fairly profitable for us, and we're scooping up all of that demand that TikTok Shop and D2C are generating. But there is constant conflict in terms of like each P&L and how much leeway we have in each P&L and how much profitability in each P&L. And the thing that we've come back to time and time again is differentiating the products and looking at gift with purchase on D2C. We haven't quite figured that one out yet, but if you go on our D2C channel, you'll see different gifts at the moment and different things that we're testing. And then also looking at like subscription versus like Amazon and TikTok Shop doesn't have subscription, and the formats that we sell in, really.
So moving sort of away from the world of online now, more into the world of retail, let's say, I think working with retailers is so amazing and has definitely been more of our approach at Fixate as well. We've sort of gone down the more bricks and mortar route than digital. But it does come with cost, you know, listing fees, margins, let alone the cost of dunnhumby data, should you be lucky enough to try and buy some. So, Raissa, I think if we start with you, how do you protect your margin and your brand when you're negotiating with these bigger retailers? And can you sort of walk us through what your retail strategy looks like at the moment?
So we kind of, for that reason, deliberately focused on hospitality at first. I think, because we are a product in the first instance to be mixed with another product, which in our vodka and tequila, about 60% of our consumption is with alcohol or with another product, and then 40% without. For us, it was really important in terms of brand building that the first experience that you have as a consumer is a good experience, a nice drink. If you, for example, buy a cucumber watermelon, you don't know what to do with it, you pair it with a dark rum, it would kind of taste not so nice. So that's why we very much focus on hospitality, as well as instead of going retail, then you're dependent in the UK on 4 or 5 customers. If you then get a D-list, then you kind of that really hit your P&L hard, whilst focusing on hospitality, kind of we sell to 10,000 bars and restaurants. You can lose a few, you can win a few, and it doesn't really kind of impact you as much. Margins are a lot better in hospitality. And in mixers, our volumes are much higher. For example, with in COVID, we had a listing with the Tesco or with Waitrose in 300 or 250 stores. They actually told us, okay, you need to have a minimum of, I think it was 4 units per week per store or something. I think we did 5 or 6. That whole Waitrose business was smaller still than our 60th biggest on-trade customer. So for us, retail is really small compared to our on-trade business, because gin and tonics and Moscow Mules, Palomas, cocktails, that's really what's being drank in hospitality, and maybe not so much within retail. So our focus is 100% hospitality, and that's where we build our brand for all those reasons. But I think retail for us then becomes slightly more of a reason for us to do marketing, because if we do marketing and brand building exercises and then customers can only buy it within hospitality, but they can't really actually buy it at home, then that also doesn't make sense. So for us, we see that retail part more as in you need somewhere for people to go and buy it. So probably also slightly different.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. I think it just shows you how it depends on the occasion.
Exactly.
A lot of people drink alcohol in the on-trade. Yeah. What about Kelly for you? What do you think it's really taken for PerfectTed to get some amazing retail listings, and how do you protect against that?
Do you know, retail was a really fundamental part of our success in the beginning, and I think most businesses, and this is true of the businesses I worked at before PerfectTed, start with, let's say, a health food store and move to a Whole Foods Market and a Waitrose, and then maybe a Sainsbury's, and there feels like quite a natural ladder there. And when PerfectTed, one of the biggest listings that we got initially was Holland & Barrett. So just before we went on Dragon's Den, we were approached by Holland & Barrett on Instagram, which never happens to a brand. A retailer never approaches you, let alone on Instagram. And they wanted to stock our energy drinks, full distribution. We told them, about Dragon's Den and that this was going to happen, and they were even more bought in and gave us even more support. But a lot of founders in the space advised us not to do it, and they said, you can't go nationwide straight away. You don't have any brand awareness, you've not tested your stock and supply chain, and it's not going to work. And we were really lucky that it did. And I think a big part of our success has been retail gives mental availability as well as physical availability. Just the volume of customers that are going through those doors into a Tesco, into Holland & Barrett, it gives you that brand awareness that you need as a young brand. And what we've always focused on is how do we disrupt the shopper mission and educate them in store? And as we spoke about in the previous question, budgets are tight. So we focus on in-store partnerships. So one of the pieces of work I'm most proud of is we did a partnership with Oatly last year with Sainsbury's, and it was an in-store wow bay, which was a bay where you could buy an oat milk, our matcha, and a Monin syrup. And it was, the messaging was oat matcha latte. This is all you need to buy and make a matcha at home. And it was just disruptive education at shelf. And we split the cost 3 ways because there's 3 brands involved. So that has really worked, and retail has really helped us.
No, I think it's amazing. You're so right when it comes to that mental and physical availability, and just being visible in retail can really drive both of those. So I suppose on that line of challenger brand marketing and how to punch above your weight, you guys do that very well at PerfectTed. How do you sort of build a brand without the default playbook? You know, what are you guys doing differently that you think is really working when it comes to building the PerfectTed brand?
Thank you for saying that. I really appreciate it. I think for us, storytelling has always been at the heart of what we've done, and our founders are a big part of our marketing. Marissa, who unfortunately isn't here, but Marissa, one of our co-founders, her story is a huge part of why the brand exists. She has ADHD and anxiety and found that energy drinks and coffee really disrupted that and did not work for her. And matcha genuinely transformed her life. And when you meet her, as I'm sure you will, you'll see she's dressed head to toe in green and she only ever drinks matcha. I never see her drink water. So it transformed her life, and she wanted to share that with the wider community. And the neurodiverse community is a big part of our audience. So her story is front and centre in our marketing. And I think that has really helped us. If you see our cans, for example, on the back, you've got a picture of Marissa and her story. We tell it as truthfully as we can, whilst getting around the compliance regulations. That has really helped us, and being disruptive. So I mentioned the Sabrina Carpenter example. Another one that I'm really proud of, I think embodies what we do differently, is the London Coffee Festival. So most brands that start in this space would exhibit at the London Coffee Festival, and you'd pay for a stand, and you try and convince cafes to stock your products. And we thought, we can't do that. We don't have the cash, but also it's not very PerfectTed. We want to show up and tell these customers that we're different. So we decided that we were going to crash it. And we had this huge flag printed that said London Matcha Festival, crossed out coffee. We had a team of 12, just basically everyone that worked for us, in boiler suits. And they turned up and they sampled 2,000 matcha latte cans, gave out tote bags to everyone who was going to London Coffee Festival. We got kicked out and there was a cease and desist issued. But every member of London Coffee Festival was carrying a PerfectTed tote bag that was obviously bright green. So everyone learnt about us and it went viral. And that is just doing things differently and keeping the story at the heart. I hope that's answered your question. Maybe I got on a tangent there.
No, it's a great tangent. We love to hear outside of the box thinking and brand building the less conventional way. And then thinking about trips marketing, I suppose, online in the world of D2C, what sort of role does community and influencers play, and how do you guys go about that kind of content generation and knowing what to create that's going to really hit home on D2C or the kind of online world in general?
It's a huge part of what we do. Like, I came into this role and I was like, wow, you've got all of these amazing UGC creators, influencers who you're working with, and I think it's really helped build up the brand. And I don't know about you guys, but like, I think how a lot of people discover Trip is online and through social media. and we've kind of, the strategy has evolved over the years and how we do it, but I'd say we have lots of different levels. So at the bottom level, you have your UGC content creators who we use for our Meta ads on Meta and boost those, but we also have a lot of our TikTok shop affiliates in a similar way to PerfectTed. And our TikTok shop affiliates, we're constantly sending out our product, samples of our product to them, and making sure that we're getting multiple videos from everyone who we're sending our product out to, because as we know, it's quite costly to send the product out with the fulfillment costs. So that's kind of like our bottom, like, revenue driving level. Then we have our paid influencers and paid affiliates, who, if we've got a campaign coming up, for example, we just released our mango product last week, we'll reach out to them and we'll pay them an upfront commission to do some work for us on Instagram or on TikTok. And what that often does is it shows everyone else on there on TikTok that, okay, this is a great product, and it gives awareness. And then you start getting other affiliates and influencers reaching out to you to say, look, I'd love to work with you, and I'd love to get a sample of this, and it helps spread it far and wide. Once you get someone talking about it and you see it everywhere on your feed, that's when it starts really taking off. And then we've got our top level, which is our celebrities, or not all A-list celebrities, B-list and C-list celebrities. And what they really help to do is drive brand trust. So we use them from an organic perspective, them posting about us, but we also reuse that content and boost it on Meta and on TikTok so that we can scale it and have more people looking at it. And people are like, oh, okay, so Joe Jonas's drinking trip, it must be a legit product, especially when you're coming across us on social media. There's so many different brands who are advertising on social media that sometimes you can't trust and you actually don't really want to buy from, and you buy from them and it all goes wrong, which is my experience in some cases. But having those people there to show that it is a legit brand and even these celebrities like it does really help. So sorry, I don't know if that answers your question. But
No, definitely, yeah. I think we're all wondering how you guys got Joe Jonas, but we can talk about that later.
Great ambassador, I love that.
Yeah, it was a great ad as well. Raissa, on partnerships, what have you guys done in terms of online or in just whether it's talent or brand ambassadors? I feel like you must do a lot more in the on-trade with the spokespeople from the trade. So how have partnerships across the business really been a value add for you?
I think for us, our natural kind of partnership is always with spirits. So we do a lot on the one hand side with the bigger brands like the Pernod Ricard or the Bacardis, and on the other hand with lots of the smaller spirit brands. And I think that works really well because kind of they need a mixer to pair with and we need a spirit. So it is a natural complementary product partnership where we can always kind of naturally split costs between two brands, like you say, for example, in retail, but also with wholesale, with in hospitality. And in terms of brand ambassadors, we very much focus on kind of more well-known, but it's very niche, bartenders, kind of well-known chefs, well-known people within kind of food and beverage in particular, because we are so hospitality focused. And so they may be famous within the hospitality world, but maybe most people don't know them. Yeah.
And have you ever turned down partnerships? I suppose a question for all of you guys. Has there been a partnership that you've thought they've approached us, we're not really sure this is on brand, or how do you really decipher what's worth doing?
We've turned down lots of partnerships. I think it does need to work well in terms of story. I think it has to be kind of an authentic way of it matching together, because otherwise I really don't think it works. So I think it's super important that there is kind of storytelling works, but also product work together, same audience or a totally different audience that you can really piggyback from each other. We do, for example, lots of partnerships, or for example, we don't have distribution in Scotland, but then we partner with brands that have a good distribution in Scotland, and then that's how we kind of help each other. We, for example, kind of in England, and they can help us in Scotland. So either we work with brands that are super similar in terms of audience and customers and reach, or that are kind of the opposite-ish.
Kelly, what about you guys?
We have actually turned down a lot of partnerships, I hate to say. I think for us, partnerships is a huge part of our strategy. And I wish I could tell you, we have a really exciting partnership later this year with some ambassadors. But in terms of what our criteria, we're a much younger brand than you guys. We're celebrating our 5th birthday this year. and we're still relatively new to a lot of consumers. So we are trying to build a brand that feels very much for a certain community, which is typically an 18 to 35-year-old woman. And our bet is on what we call little bigness. And it's within that community, make this brand feel really big. This is a phrase I stole from Biomal, and I can see Janet in the background, one of my previous founders. So this has been integral for us. It's making your brand feel big in a small community, and that means showing up everywhere, the brands they love, the influencers they love, the pop-ups they love, the events, talking like they do, featuring them in your content, and the brand loyalty you get from that is so much stronger, and it really helps define who you are in everyone's mindset. So we typically say no if a brand is talking to a different consumer, and another challenge we've had is consumers don't know what matcha is or necessarily what to do with it. And a lot of brands in beauty or toiletries have approached us. And what might sound like a really exciting opportunity for a shower gel or a lip gloss or a perfume, we fear that would confuse consumers at this stage in the maturity of matcha as to what the product is. So that it tends to be what we've said no to. I don't know about you.
To be honest, I guess different people within the company have different partnerships approaching them in different ways. So, I guess what I'm trying to come back to is that there are so many different types of partnerships that you can do, and I think often a different partner will work in different areas. So it might be that Calm, for example, is a really big partner for us, and that's worked so well for us in terms of building brand trust. So when you see us in store, if you haven't heard of us, you can see, okay, well, they've partnered with Calm are a brand I know, it must be legit. But all the way, you then have different levels of partnerships. You might do like a bundle where you have two different products together, or it could even just be at the lowest end, working together on TikTok Shop and doing a different product, a different brand sends their product, and you have that as a prize in your TikTok Shop. So each partnership can be looked at in a different way, and you can have it every different stage of the funnel. So often there is a way that you can work with these brands in partnership, but it might not just be the biggest high-end fancy partnerships.
Yeah, that's great. And so a final gear change before we go to Q&A, just going to cover off a bit of supply chain and international expansion, because I feel like you're all distributed abroad, not just in the UK, right? So how did you know when it was the right time to go abroad with your distribution? Like, I think PerfectTed launched into Australia. Was that your first? How did you guys know that was the first great market to go into? And of course, now Trip in the US and DoubleDutch, I feel like you're everywhere across Europe, aren't you? So how did you know that was the right launch market for you?
I think for us, and we actually are distributed now in 50 countries, which is insane. And a lot of that has been driven by our work in the hospitality sector. So, for example, every Joe in the Juice in the world uses PerfectTed matcha, which is amazing. And we try and leverage those partners for brand awareness too with menu branding. And then there are markets that we have launched in retail and e-commerce as well. Australia, we had a big launch last year, which was very exciting. And how do we know? I think for us, we're looking at the maturity of the market when it comes to matcha. So, for example, is the coffee culture evolved? And I know this is going to sound really silly, but if a country is not serving like an oat flat white and their coffee culture is a little bit more espresso, not a lot of options, it's not really going to work, yeah?
So not Italy.
Not yet. Maybe we'll try. I think we might be trying, actually. But where it works is countries where there is demand already, but no one's leading it, and we can come in and be category first and own that. And Australia was a really interesting one. It was very challenging to run a launch campaign on the other side of the world. But one of the insights that we learned early, which really helped, is there are a hell of a lot of expats in Australia from the UK, particularly amongst the Gen Z population and early millennials. So there were people that are aware of the brand and loved it now in Australia. So our trick was, how can you turn all of them into your ambassadors and your influencers and make the brand feel like something that's not a foreign export and not super new? And that worked. And I'm really happy to say that this week we have a new international marketing manager joining my team. So that's going to help as well, hopefully.
So especially with the languages.
Oh, yeah.
And Raissa, what about you?
I think we work with mostly with distributors in each market, and then they get exclusive distribution rights of DoubleDutch within, for example, the Netherlands, and in return we get exclusivity on the mixer soft drink category within them. So I think the challenge within that model is that you need to find the right distributor because you're kind of stuck with them, and they are really an extension of DoubleDutch within that country. But I think if you make it right, then you do get. I find sometimes export even easier than building it in the UK because you kind of have, for example, in the Netherlands we are with the single biggest soft drink distributor, and they distribute Pepsi and all the big brands. I think they have 98% coverage within hospitality. They serve all the retailers, and so you can kind of piggyback on their distribution model. Rather than having to build everything from scratch. So I think within that model of distribution, I think the most important thing to be in front and get in front within the portfolio of the bigger distributors, because I think that's key, is that you need a good showcase market, which our home market is the UK. And so a big distributor would unlikely take on a brand like DoubleDutch, where they also would have to give exclusivity within kind of the mixer category, unless you have a really good case study, as in the UK is where we sell to all the private membership clubs, to these 5-star hotels, to this number of distribution. So I think if you want to export and distribution is the model that you want to go for, then I think it's important that you first have a good case study that you can show in your home market, because most distributors will look at your home market and the results there.
We do distribution model in a lot of markets as well, and it's fantastic.
So with Trip, we always knew that we wanted to be global, and we had huge ambitions. We obviously grew up in the UK, and we grew in the UK first. We then did try in France, and we wanted to go quite heavy in France, and we thought we'd employ the same model of D2C, using that as a halo channel onto retail. And we did get the listings in France. But very quickly we found that CBD is a difficult drink to sell in different countries. It's a difficult drink to sell in the UK. And we did the same in the US, and we saw the US as being a great market for us to get into. But again, we found policy issues. Some states don't allow it, other states do. What we did do was leverage our investors and our partnerships. So her house had invested in us. That helped us to get a foot in the door in the US. But again, in both markets, we got stuck and we hit hurdles. And that was when we reformulated and looked at our product and said, actually, we don't think this is the right product to try for international expansion. And that's when we brought out our magnesium range that doesn't have the same problems and the same hurdles. So it's not going to be the same as everyone else. But if you do produce a product, I guess it comes back to looking at policy and how easy it is. But in the US, once we reformulated, we suddenly saw huge expansion, and it's gone really, really well for us there. Again, through a combination of using each of those different channels for different purposes. I can't talk for the retail team, but they have seen a lot of success, and some of that success has come from the connections in the UK. So, for example, we are selling extremely well in Costco in the UK, and that really opened up doors for Costco in the US. So I guess that's a little tip there.
I saw Liv recently speaking at the soft drinks conference, and she was saying how when she reformulated, actually now the magnesium is a larger part of the business, which is incredible. And you think how well you were doing before, and now when you weave in the magnesium. So it's great to hear a good success story. Okay, I think we're going to go to Q&A now. So if anyone has any burning questions, I think we've got time for a few.
Hey guys, thank you so much for a wonderful conversation. Just going back to the beginning, I would love to understand more about your fundraising journey and how you're overcoming the challenges of connecting with the right investors.
Thank you. I think it's definitely a tougher climate than 5-6 years ago. But I think connecting with the right investors, I think it is about literally talking to everyone about your fundraise journey and talking to your customers, to everyone, appropriate and inappropriate. You just have to get the word out. I think LinkedIn is amazing. Everyone is kind of within your reach. And so I would just really, we've met the most amazing people that I thought would never answer on LinkedIn, but some people do. And I think investing in your LinkedIn and trying to post kind of regularly there and build a bit of credibility for yourself as a founder on LinkedIn has definitely helped. I think, for example, how with us the family Heineken came on board is we were at a network event and we were fundraising and somebody said like, okay, who would be your ideal investor? And I hadn't really thought about it. And I on the spot said, oh, I actually think the family Heineken because it's also female-led, family business, Dutch heritage. I think they would be amazing. One of the biggest beverage brands in the world, obviously. And this guy didn't know anyone we were talking to. And there was a guy and he said, I actually know someone who knows them via. If I make an introduction, would I get a commission? And we were like, yeah, sure, fine. And 3 months later, somebody called me an unknown number and I picked up and he said, do you remember me from this event 3 months ago? And I was like, no, but tell me. I can get you a meeting with them, with Family Heineken next week, Monday, if you want to fly to Amsterdam. And we thought, how mega random, this can't be real. And we went on the flight and we thought up until kind of the moment that we went into that office, that it would probably be a scam or something. But it was not, and we had a good meeting and we had a real click. And I think that does show that you just really just need to tell everyone that you're fundraising, talk about who do you want to meet, who's your perfect investor, just tell kind of specifics. I think what's really helped over the years is be super specific about who your ideal investor is or who you want to meet or kind of what sector, and then random people randomly help.
Oh, I couldn't answer better than you.
I have another idea, which is one of the things I've often done is looked at the investors of similar brands or brands I admire. So they might not be directly in your space, but you know, if there's, depending on what stage you're at, if you're looking at angel investors, for example, who are some high net worths that maybe put some initial startup capital into an equivalent snack brand, let's say in my case. So have a look at some parallel brands and then you can see who's invested in them through Companies House and just also speaking to other founders, building your network that way. Any more questions?
Hi guys. With PerfectTed and Trip, you've built brands in categories while you define them, CBD, matcha, and magnesium. You see challenger brands coming up every week. How have you built, or how would you describe the moat that keeps you separate to them?
Do you want to go first?
Sorry. So I think Trip is a pretty unique case in the fact that it was a CBD brand to begin with, and it really comes back to that policy. So lots of compliance issues, policy issues around CBD, and what we did is we really found a way through it that lots of other brands couldn't, and that kind of built the moat behind us along the way. So I think it's quite unique for what we did, but I guess on top of that, we also built the brand, right? So people recognized us, people knew us, and coming back to what I've been saying before, I think a lot of that was that multi-channel marketing that we did, and using D2C and over the last couple of years TikTok Shop as well as essentially free marketing, because you're paying back. It is a revenue driving channel, but all of that marketing that you're generating is going onto your retail as well. So pretty unique for us in the fact that not many other CBD brands could get over those compliance issues. But I'd say building the brand around you as well is a pretty great way of doing it.
No, I completely agree on the brand piece. I think in addition to that, supply, that matcha, we have worked incredibly hard to build a global supply chain and infrastructure in the matcha category, and we and our founders go to Japan, all around the world. Now we're sourcing globally. every 6 weeks, they're out of the office building. And we have a whole team that works directly with farmers to on our supply chain. And that means that we can dictate a lot. We're very protected from a supplier perspective, and it gives us a little bit of power, but by God, that was hard to build. And I think that's the background that is a harder story to tell, but has been really, really important work that our team have done.
Hi. Just going back to the subscription side of things, churn is a massive issue when it comes to subscription. Have you got a bit of a secret sauce of what's worked in terms of a lot of companies will give a discount to get you on board with the subscription, but then a lot of consumers use that and then drop off because they just want a one-time purchase discount? Is there anything that you found that's particularly worked in hooking them in and getting them to that kind of month 3? Because once they're at month 3, then it tends to be the churn is not as big. I'd love to know if anything's worked for you.
That's a question for you.
Month 3 is also our biggest churn moment. Well, after order 1, you'll get people who are coming in just for the discount, and then they're like churn, which is fair enough because they don't know if they're going to like it. They try it, they might not go through. And then after you get them on for month 3, it's exactly the same for us. So they're sticky customers after that. There's lots of things that we've done, lots of pricing tests. So looking at different pricing structures. I don't know how easy it is for you to test on if you've got a Shopify site and if you can A/B test, but running those A/B tests on pricing and seeing actually do consumers want cheaper price first of all, or and then rising it up after that, or do you stay cheap for the first 3 orders and then increase it after that? Like there's lots of different ways that you can test that. At the moment, we're testing a free gift with your third purchase. And calling that out very clearly up front so that customers know if they get to their third purchase, they get that free gift. We're looking at positioning our subscribe and save offer differently and talking about it more as like the trip club and all of these other benefits that you get, as well as it just being a cheaper subscribe and save. And of course, our onboarding flows, those email flows, making sure we're having a high open rate of those. They're very educational. They bring people on the journey of what Trip's about, so people understand Trip and build it into a habit as well. Ultimately, though, it is pretty tricky. Making sure also having a cancellation flow and optimizing that and optimizing kind of your response based on what people are cancelling for, but using the data that you get from that cancellation surveys. For us, most people cancel because they have too much product. So it's, okay, well, how do we get around that with the product? What can we do there? I don't know what type of responses you might get, but if it's like the price is too high, that could come down to testing or different offers. So you're really using that data to optimize best.
Hi guys, I think I have a question for all of you, but it's around winning and I suppose succeeding in both on-trade and retail listings. I think it's such an exciting moment when you get your first on-trade listing or first retail listing, but going from that first listing to your repeat and again, that same customer ordering. So I suppose my question is, how do you succeed in whether it's supporting your buyers or going from buyer to customer education, or on-trade, going from your distributors supporting those like individual on-trade accounts? What would your advice be in terms of how do you support them best and ensure that they're repeat customers year after year?
I think for us, we talk a lot about the retail and out-of-home flywheel, which is essentially most people have their first matcha latte in a cafe, but they're just ordering an iced matcha. And then they may go in store and recognize the brand and purchase a 30-gram pouch. So both are equally important to us. For us in out-of-home, we have a whole team of ex-baristas who are trained to go in, find leads, and then nurture them. And we do bespoke menu creation. So you've never done matcha before. We will design your menu and from a recipe development perspective, but also from a graphic design perspective. We'll provide it to you. We'll train your staff. We will check in with you to make sure you're making that matcha properly. And we do partnerships in the cafe sector with, similar to what you were mentioning with chefs and ambassadors, with famous within those communities baristas and provide them with recipe books and things like that. And retail, I mean, Shani, our head of sales, well, and she is a tour de force. She's incredible. And relationships is what she's fantastic at. She's drilled that in the team, and that's really helped. I'm sure you have a ton of insights.
Yeah, I think hospitality on trades, we also put a lot of focus on menu development and training bar staff, because I think in hospitality or in on-trade, the most important is that that the bar staff is really behind the product, because it's such a big part of the sales. Lots of people within on-trade, within bars, don't really know what they're going to order. So if you have the bartender itself, that's the best brand ambassador. So we do a lot of investment into training that bar staff and doing cocktail development as well. And I think in hospitality, I think it's important that you build kind of influential accounts, as in what are the accounts, if you have a limited number of resources, limited time of time, where do you focus on? Focus on the accounts that can really kind of set the standard. If it's good enough for Soho House, it will be good enough for whatever, and that you can build reference case studies. I don't know what your product is, but for example, we have like our tonic water is always our biggest seller, because there's always exclusivity within the mixer category, so we would never sit alongside another mixer brand, which is a challenge, a massive challenge, because that means that the whole market is super contracted. But once you're in, and you kind of have all the volume of gin and tonics. But we also have, for example, a cucumber watermelon, and that is never, nobody goes in and says, can I have a gin with cucumber watermelon? So, for example, that part then is very much the education part, and we really need to push on putting a spritz menu that we recommend with our cucumber watermelon on spritz menu. We then have to push to put it on the soft drink side. And I think the more kind of parts within point of purchase, so within the menu to the bartender, to kind of put reference points on where a customer can actually see it. Glassware is, for example, super important for us. We try to put a lot on how does it look within a drink, for example, so that within hospitality, a lot of the sales is from I want what they are having there because it looks nice. So I think you have to think in hospitality about kind of what are the touch points on where you can convince a consumer into. Lots of people don't really know what they're going to order, but kind of decide that at the moment.
That's amazing, thank you.
Hello. I've just got a question on occasion. So the Celsius CEO, he reset their complete strategy around an occasion, a single occasion, which was pre-workout. And it's become a global strategy for them and the foundations of a lot of their success. One thing they own every single day, your pre-workout thought. Is that going to become an important part for your brands, is to own a daily occasion so that people are automatically drinking it on a regular basis, or is it something that's not necessarily going to be important? Occasion is the key.
So with Trip, it's kind of accidentally happened, and we haven't tried to push it, but a lot of people will drink a Trip in the evening to help them unwind before bed. Now, ironically, we've actually tried to dispel this. we don't actively try to market it because we don't want people to think, oh, if I drink a Trip, I'm going to fall asleep straight away, you know? We don't want people to think I can't have it out and about. So we've kind of gone down the opposite route. And because we want to go mainstream, we want to compete against the likes of Coke, the likes of Pepsi, we want people to have a Trip on any occasion and anywhere. So actually a lot of our marketing talks about the different occasions you can have it through the day, and it tries to talk about like having it like in the morning or at your post 3 p.m. slump, or when you get home after work, or in the evening. And that's an active kind of marketing strategy on our part to try to become broader and reach people in different moments. Now, it also helps that each of our sales channels kind of work towards that. So if you're looking at like a retail when you're in the front of store and you're just going in to grab a drink, that could be like midday when you're out for lunch and you're getting a meal deal, versus out of home and bars and restaurants. So each sales channel kind of works towards a slightly different moment. But it's super interesting about Celsius and them owning the moment. So maybe it's something that we should look at in the long run.
You know, it's funny because I had a trip last night before bed. I will usually drink one when I'm trying not to have a glass of wine, and I'll pour it in a glass of wine with a nice ice cube and sit on the sofa. But that's my sad life. But in terms of occasion for us, I think it's a really smart strategy. And I think it's smart in that it ties the brand to a moment and potentially a functional benefit there. So it's really good from a branding exercise. For us, we're toying around with different moments. But if you look at coffee consumption, that is quite routine and regular. So tying matcha to those moments helps us. But one of the benefits of matcha is that it's slower release energy and it's lower caffeine than coffee. So you can actually have it later in the day. And our out-of-home partners, like cafe partners, that's a big benefit to them because they can get sales in the afternoon and the evening. So anchoring in moments from a consumer perspective, but not a trade, is probably where we'll end up. Yeah, we could try that. I think that might work. Maybe not before bed, though. I don't think that would work.
We've got time for one more question. There's a burning final question from anyone.
Okay, mine's less strategy focused, but to build a challenger brand, you have to embrace the unhinged playbook. And for each of your brands, what do you feel has been a big part of embracing it, but also sustaining it as you've been scaling?
Sorry, I don't know. What do you mean? Sorry.
How do you stay true to being disruptive in your category?
I think if it is part of your story, then I think it comes naturally. I think the challenge is that you don't forever stay the challenger brand because that's also unauthentic. I think there are a few kind of within our category, a few brands that want to push kind of that I am the challenger brand, but kind of 15 years on, it doesn't really work now that they have mass distribution globally. So I do think at some point probably kind of need to change from disruptor to kind of accept we are not there. Accept that you're not the challenger anymore, or at least not a disruptor. But I think then your tone of voice and your type of marketing and being funny and kind of a bit cheeky or whatever it is that you stand for, I think as long as you then keep doing that, that is fine. But maybe not stay on being the disruptor-ish challenger.
I think unhinged is a great word, and that's what we talk about a lot is unhinged marketing. And for us, it's been about hiring people from non-traditional backgrounds. So our social media manager, for example, she ran the page at Great British Memes for a few years, which is like the UK's biggest meme account, not from a food and beverage background. So she's come in, and her mindset is how do you go viral via stunts and leveraging culture. And I think it's also really important, and this is going to get harder as we scale, is accepting a tolerance for failure. Like you have to have a culture in which people feel like they can do something crazy or silly or disruptive and it not really work or tie into anything. And if they feel like they have to demonstrate a certain metric after doing something all the time and their job's on the roll if they don't, that is never going to work. And we can all do more there, I think.
I think Trip's slightly unhinged way of working is just how much we want to do. And I think that's something that you don't really get when you're a Pepsi or a Coca-Cola. It's like our founders are constantly saying, okay, this is the new project, this is the new project, this is what you're focusing on. And I think because we are so agile and so young, you can do that. So for example, I can't name names at the moment, but we have a certain A-list celebrity coming on with us very soon. And normally these kind of partnerships would take years. And you'd think about like the TV ad and everything that comes with it. And you plan it for months and months and months. Whereas our founders are like, right, we can do this in 2 months. And that's the kind of pace that we're working towards. And I think that's probably where we're slightly more unhinged and how we work at being that disruptor and getting ourselves out there quickly.
Okay, so I think we're going to leave it there and we can all move upstairs for sort of drinks and everything. But thank you to my amazing panelists. I'm sure some of you are staying around for a little bit after, so if there's any burning questions, you can grab them one-on-one. But thank you so much, everyone. We hope you enjoyed it, and we will see you upstairs.